All right, welcome into a super wild card edition of What's the Spread. Miles Markowitz here, Mr. Brad Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Lots to talk about today. Before we get into a full weekend of the NFL playoffs, we've got to break down our national championship game. Give me your thoughts. Georgia gets it done, 33-18 over Alabama. Crazy night for college football.
Yeah. I think that, the game was interesting because it was Alabama's game up until Jamison Williams got hurt. And it's like the coaching staff or the players weren't ready to handle that adversity. And I think some of this, for the longest, I was placing the ownership on Bill O'Brien. I do think Bill O'Brien is a terrible play caller. That's not going to change. But the ownership also is on Nick Saban. And why I say that? You have players like Ajay Hall, Billingsley, players like that who were asked to step up in a big way who haven't been getting a lot of playing time, young guys. And the reason they weren't getting a lot of playing time wasn't because they were young. It's because they weren't following the Saban methods. There was something that he didn't like, so he would hold them out for multiple games at a time. And not saying that that's right or wrong, but when you have those kind of rules or that's how you do things, when it's time to thrust those young guys like a Jai Hall into the fire, they don't have that game experience because you were so hard off your rocker that when we were up 35 in a blowout game, you couldn't put a player like Hall in or Billingsley in. You think those players really care about playing in a game when we're up 35? You're punishing them to go into the game. But that game time is meaningful to get quality reps. And I'm just a firm believer that, when you are a tough coach like that, those are just some of the pills that you have to swallow. Just like when you play your star player on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, Saban and Bama could not afford to lose Jamison Williams in that game, hands down. Now, when it comes to the outcome of the game, seeing how it ended up going, I don't know if it really would have made a difference. It seems like towards the end, Georgia just their depth and their talent on defense really stood out. But Bryce Young not having his top playmaker was huge, and as you said, having a lot of inexperienced guys out there was tough. And it showed.
Was weird. It was.
Yeah, it showed.
It looked like a bunch of young guys. Like it looked like a bunch of young kids playing football. When even in like the SEC championship, it looked like men playing, but this looked like a bunch of freshmen, which they were, and that's why I hope that people aren't being too hard on them. Like we weren't supposed to be here, but that's what also makes it hurt the most is that we were not supposed to be good and we defied the odds all season. And somehow we made it there with every anticipation to win. And Georgia was the better team. They might've been the better team all season and they deserved it.
Yeah. There was a couple things that I saw in this game and kind of going off of a lot of what I saw out of respected, college football analysts on Twitter.
Yeah.
And also, because they have a really good beat on the casuals. Everyone just kept saying during the first half, it's boring. I can't believe we're watching Alabama and Georgia again. I can't believe it's SEC. And I could not have disagreed more with that then and also now. The game evolved, right?
Yes.
This was a national championship game. It was a 4-quarter game. And a lot of times people will use like a boxing match, as a comparison to a football game. But I think even more so in a national championship game, when it was 9-6, whatever it may be, that was just two boxers feeling each other out in the ring. That was Nick Saban and Kirby going back and forth, trying to figure out, okay, what is the other bringing, and how can we take that next step? And then once the game opened up, that's when we really saw things take shape. Obviously, the Jamison Williams going down hurt. That was a big momentum changer in the game, but. Georgia really put their foot down on defense. They took advantage of it. I mean, you heard from the coaches, on the Georgia sideline after, they kept telling all their players, number one's down, number one's out. He's not a factor, So now they're changing up their game.
They can blitz every single play.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to account for him anymore. It's over.
Blitz every play.
There was at that point, there was nothing Bryce Young could do. But kind of from a more meta perspective, because Alabama and Georgia are going to be back in the playoff again next year.
Yeah.
Without even doing a season preview, I can already say Bama and Georgia will be in my top 4 next year. That's just kind of where we are in college football right now. Now, the other 2 spots in the college football playoff for next year are wide open, but Bama and Georgia are by far and above the 2 best programs in the country right now. And it's funny because in years past, we were grouping together Bama, Ohio State, and Clemson with Georgia, right behind. But
now it's Georgia up top.
Yeah, there's no denying it now. Bama and Georgia are tier 1, and then you can rank tier 2 and 3 however you want to. But going into next year, it's going to be no surprise that we see those same 2 teams in the championship again.
Yeah.
But the entire college football season does not have to hinge on whether or not you enjoy the national championship. You and I talk about this all the time. There was so much more to college football. It's about the journey in college football more than the destination. ESPN will, because they cover the playoff and because they host it, they want you to believe that it's playoff or nothing. And we've been guilty of saying that on this podcast as well. And as an Ohio State fan and an Alabama fan, we feel that way. But I just don't want to forget everything that makes college football great. It doesn't always, yes, we might see Alabama and Georgia play for another championship next year, but you got to enjoy the journey, and the small victories. But, it not to say that this, playing field can't even out, but at this point, man, like they've got a hold on college football.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And you made a really good point about all season long. There were so many little takeaways of things that made us smile, things that brought us joy from college football that create this entire college football spectrum that people really fail to realize. They go, oh God, it's Alabama, Georgia, it's SEC, Alabama in the championship again. Like, think about the times where you get to see Mackenzie Milton suit up, play college football again, small victories that we have throughout the entire college football season that we have to hang our hats on as college football fans.
And can't wait to get into our too early top 25. But for the next month, we have NFL action. It's one of the best times of the year, there's no doubt. The college football season is behind us, and, that is a sad thing. But, hey, it's football. We got Super Wild Card Weekend. We have 3 days of games that mean everything, and we're going to start it off with the division winner, Cincinnati Bengals, at home, facing off against the Las Vegas Raiders, who – I don't think anybody expected to be here. No. I thought for sure that it would be the Chargers, and all these matchups should have been different, but this is what we're left with here. The Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. This kicks everything off. I'm going to go ahead and start here, Brad, because I'm not going to take the Bengals. I'm going to take the Raiders here plus 5.5. Everything on the field is going to tell you to take the Bengals, but we are dealing with a Cincinnati Bengals franchise who have not been able to get over the hump in the playoffs. Their last 7 playoff appearances, they are 0-6-1 against the spread. Now, that's just history. If we're looking at the field right now, obviously you're looking at Joe Burrow, who, before sitting last week, he comes off 2 of the best performances that we've seen in the entire league, almost throwing for 1,000 yards in those 2 games in big wins over the Ravens and the Chiefs. And that's what got the Bengals here. But there's just something about 5.5 points that makes me nervous. And yes, I'm from Cincinnati, and I am a Bengals fan. And I'm telling you, I am feeling a Bengals 3-point win in this one. Now, the Raiders, impressive in that Chargers game to get here, and they've been scrappy all year long. All year. And they finished the season 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 as a road underdog. I think 5.5 is too many, Brad. I think the Bengals get it done. I think they finally get their playoff win. It's going to be the first playoff win that I see in my lifetime. But I think it's going to be by field goal.
I wrote scrappy quarterback. I think Derek Carr is the reason this organization has been held together. If you think about all the organizations in football, none have gone through what the Raiders have gone through. They've gone through the John Gruden issues. They've gone through the death of one of their leaders of their franchises. They've gone through tragedy and one of their players killing another person. They've gone through the allowing fans back into their new stadium for the first time. It takes a strong guy to keep all that together. I'm going to back the Raiders as well. Road dogs this season of 5 or 5.5 points are 9-1 against the spread.
I like that.
I think that the Raiders, like you said, are scrappy.
Yeah.
They do enough to keep them in a game. And I think that this Raiders offense is the kind of offense that if you need to get scrappy points, and since we were just talking about college football, it kind of reminds me of that Clemson team with Hunter Renfrow. If they need to get points, they find a way to dig down Carlson, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs. They find a way to really get through it. And another reason, and this is not my ultimate reason, but it does play a part, is I do believe in rust. I do believe when players sit out that one game before the playoffs, even if they sit out even if they only play a couple snaps, they have more advantage. That rust is hard to knock off initially. It's just the game is so fast. The Raiders have been playing playoff football for all these weeks. Their playoff football started weeks ago. So they're going to be coming with their A game. And now the Bengals are going to have to reset after basically playing a scrimmage last game.
Yeah, I consider that as well, no doubt, especially with the extra game in the NFL. I think we saw, more teams than ever have their practice squads out there. And I think there's a lot to be said for the Raiders, who have been fighting for their playoff lives, as you said, the entire second half of the year, and they didn't stop. The Bengals rested everybody last week. So, how are they going to come out, after having the week off when they were so hot and playing so well? And don't forget that Joe Burrow was turnover prone this year. So as good as he played in those two, in his last two starts, with the week of rest, it's a little to see how he's going to come out. Now, if he comes out and looks how he did against the Chiefs and the Ravens, the Raiders are in trouble. But I got a field goal win here. So what's next?
Up next, we have the New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a 4-point favorite, 8:15 Saturday kick. I'm going to start this one off. I think this is tough for me, where I can make plenty of excuses. I could say all this stuff about how great of a coach Bill Belichick is. I was watching that New England Patriots game firsthand, and I know they had nothing to play for because the Bills weren't losing to the Jets. But that did not look like a team who was ready to roll into the playoffs. Division game, whatever. This is a division game. I'm going with the Bills -4. Listen, in their last 15 games, they're 9-4-2 against the spread. Josh Allen is playing some amazing football. Right now, the weather is supposed to be 0 degrees. As long as it's not a blizzard, I think the Bills easily cover this, because it would take a lot of Josh Allen mistakes and a lot of Josh McDaniels game planning to have the Patriots get a big enough lead where if the Bills win, and I'm saying the Bills win this game regardless, if the Bills don't win by 4 or more, I think that 4 is a safe number. When you start getting to 4.5, you're not as safe, because I could see this being like a 20-24 victory, maybe. Low scoring, a lot of running, but man, Josh Allen is a dynamic quarterback, and I think that makes this team very scary.
Yeah, this is my second best bet of the weekend. I am all over the Buffalo Bills here, -4. You did mention the sub-zero temperatures, but I don't think we're getting snow.
No, I haven't seen any yet.
No howling winds this time around. Josh Allen's going to have his passing game. And last game, in their last meeting, threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, Mac Jones had pockets this year where he was playing really good football, but the Patriots ended the season 1-3 against the spread. The Bills ended the season 3-1 against the spread. And this is a big statement game for the Buffalo Bills, who lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots year after year. And now they get them at home, where I think the Patriots are 9-1 in their last 10 trips to Buffalo. This is a big statement for the Buffalo Bills franchise to get this win in the playoffs over the Patriots at home. And I think 4 is a low enough number where I'm all over that cover. I think it's a touchdown victory for the Bills.
No, I'm glad you said that, because even though I have my projected score at 20-4, I think that's like our floor. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills just go out and embarrass them.
Yeah,
same. And Mac Jones is getting sacked and pressured because he has to drop back and pass. I just don't see enough from that offense. Damien Harris's carries is set at 14.5. And I think it's set at 14.5. Not because they think that they're going to take the lead and run the ball the entire game. I think it's set at 14.5 because that offense is going to have to kind of, I hate to say this because he's a great quarterback, but baby him into the game. It's his first playoff start. Remember how Josh Allen was in his first playoff start? Like he pretty much lost the game for the Bills, and those things happen. But I think Josh Allen's going to become a man possessed. Don't be surprised if you see the Bills representing the AFC in the championship. Do not be surprised.
Yep, I've been feeling that same way. I've been thinking about this all day. As to who I think is able to make a run, and I think with Josh Allen, there's no doubt that he's able to make that playoff run. And there is something to be said for a quarterback making his first career start in the playoffs. We have it with Joe Burrow with the Bengals. We have it here with Mac Jones and the Patriots, and we have it coming up with Jalen Hurts. There's a lot to be said for quarterbacks making their first career playoff start, and Josh Allen's got plenty of playoff experience. I think this is an easy cover. All right, let's go ahead and move into Sunday. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the 1 o'clock kick. I'll go ahead and start here because this is my favorite bet of the weekend. I'm going Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, -8. The line opened here at -10. You and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. It could have moved in that direction because of injuries, because public money seems to be all over Tampa Bay. But this is a situation where I'm going with the public here. If you look at the Eagles' schedule, they ended their season with 2 games against the Giants, 2 games against Washington, the Jets, and then they rested all their starters against the Cowboys. They have not played any quality competition going down the stretch here. And with Jalen Hurts making his playoff debut against Tom Brady on the road in Tampa Bay, I think that it's advantage Tampa Bay. I know about the injuries. I'm going to put that aside for now. I don't want that to scare me off from taking a line that I think is very favorable. Tampa Bay ended the season 6-2 against the spread, only allowing 17.6 points per game. What they're going to do is they're going to force Jalen Hurts to throw him, to beat him with his arm. All right? They're going to shut down the run. Tampa Bay, only allowing 92.5 rushing yards per game. They're one of the best rush defenses in the NFL, and that's kind of where the Eagles' season took a turn, is when they started using Jalen Hurts on the ground. I think they shut him down. I think this could be a blowout victory for the Buccaneers. I'm all over this one.
Listen, I'm on the Buccaneers as well. And the first thing that you see is this is probably the funkiest line that we will see, but I'm not going to buy into the funkiness. The Eagles didn't beat a winning team all season. They have the second lowest sack total in the NFL. And the teams that the Bucs struggled against this year were teams with elite defenses who got a ton of pressure. Like, we'll give an example, like the Saints, when the Saints beat us. Or even as bad as that Washington defense has been, in that game they were getting a lot of pressure. The Jets were doing well, and Jets are still a good defensive team in pass protection.
Yeah. Week Eagles, 1 against the Cowboys front seven, Brady had 2 picks in that game.
The Eagles don't have that. The Bucs in the last 8 games went 7-1, 6-2 against the spread. I actually have so I'm counting this as a 10-point spread because that's what it opened up, right? I'm going to say the stat twice on here. This stat, home teams favored by 10 or more in Wild Card Weekend are 5-0 against the spread. 5-0 against the spread in Wild Card Weekend by 10 or more home teams. I think the Bucs go out there and they fly. I think they destroy. I saw one of the Eagles defensive coordinators say something like, Tom Brady's a trained killer. You think Tom Brady cares that they're having a lackluster performance against the Jets? That game, 2 games away from away from the playoffs, a game they know they're going to win, that they just have to stay in it. He doesn't care, man. This is the stuff he lives for, the playoffs. Don't think about Philly. Don't forget about Philly. That's on his mind too. I'm backing the Bucs -8.
All right, we're 3 for 3. I'm really curious about the next one. What do we got?
Oh, my God. The San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are a 3-point favorite. The line has plummeted down. I can't overthink this. I can't. I have to take the Cowboys. Surprisingly, I like looking at DVOA ratings. It has the 49ers as a better DVOA offensive team, but only by 1 ranking. And right behind is Cowboys. Cowboys get this game at home. I think the Cowboys go out there and they put up a great performance. America's team actually has hope. They have hope to win this. I don't think that the 49ers are there entirely yet, but they've made leaps and bounds and strides. And I think the only reason that it's a 3-point game is because we have Shanahan on the other side. That's it. He's going to do enough to keep them in the game. But Dallas has too much offensive firepower, and they're finally starting to get healthy. Their offensive line is starting to get healthy, which is a huge bonus for them to be able to run the ball with their double-headed monster. They're not so healthy in the wide receiver room, but guess what? They have 4 wide receivers who could start on any team in the NFL. I think 3 points is fair. I think it's totally fair, and I'm going to back it.
Yeah, I'm all over the Cowboys here. Again, I'm not going to overthink this one. I want to talk about the Cowboys for a second.
Yes.
They are -3. You and I like to say, I mean, especially in the playoffs and a home game, that seems like a pick-em to me. So with Cowboys -3, I don't think that they lose this game. I think they get to the next round. Even though the Cowboys have had their playoff demons. But when you look at this team, it's everything you want in a playoff team to make a run in the playoffs. You've got a Super Bowl winning coach. You've got an MVP caliber quarterback in Dak Prescott with two of the best receivers in the league in Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. You've also got a running game that's been lackluster, but as you said, getting healthier on the offensive line. And then over on the defensive side, you've got Micah Parsons, who is already one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Yep. And don't forget about Trayvon Diggs. Two elite playmakers, one in the secondary, one in the front seven. The Cowboys, man, I know we talk about these guys a lot, but they were my preseason pick to win the NFC. I've got a shiny futures ticket that the Cowboys are getting to the Super Bowl. And I'm feeling pretty good about it right now because I think everything's coming together for them. And I think the 49ers is a pretty favorable first-round matchup. The last time they were in the playoffs, they had to play Russell Wilson and the Seahawks at home in the first round. That was a tough draw. They ended up winning that game. I think this is much easier, even with Jimmy G playing a little bit better. I just think there's no comparison to Dak Prescott right now, especially, after coming off throwing 5 touchdowns. I don't care that it was against the Scrubs. He still threw for 5 touchdowns in that game. So there's no rust for the Cowboys right now.
No. What do we have next?
All right, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites. I'm just going to say, first of all, I am staying as far away from this game as I possibly can. I usually wouldn't say that openly on the podcast, but there's no way in hell. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you where I would go if you really want some action on Sunday night. It's too many points. I'm actually going to go with the Steelers here plus 12.5, and I did go back and forth on this one. But the Steelers just fought for their playoff lives. I don't know how they got in, but their defense is actually playing pretty well. And I go back to the last matchup with the Steelers and the Chiefs where the Chiefs beat them 36-10. This was only a few weeks ago. But you got to keep in mind that TJ Watt was very limited in that game. I think he only played like 55% of the snaps. He is 100%. And somehow the Steelers fumbled it 5 times in that game. So we know that's not going to happen again. The Chiefs defense, not playing great. They've given up 56 points in the last 2 games. They were carved up by Joe Burrow. Didn't play well against the Broncos. So for 12.5, I'll take the Steelers.
Listen, this is the biggest underdog Mike Tomlin or Ben Roethlisberger have ever been in the playoffs. Want to know on the other side of the ball, in the playoffs, since 2011, double-digit favorites are 7-1 against the spread. This is probably the most public bet game by the Steelers and the most heavy money, second most heavy money on the Chiefs. Like you said, I wouldn't touch this with a 5-foot pole, but since I'm going to bet on every single game for the rest of the playoffs, I'm backing the Chiefs minus 12.5.
All right.
Listen, we know TJ Watt in the record, and we know that the Steelers have 55 sacks on the season. But are we going to sit here and really think that the Steelers will do enough offensively to keep up in this game? When they played the Steelers last time, they didn't have Travis Kelce, and now Travis Kelce's finally on fire. He's been dormant all season. I'm just going to I hate taking this many points, but for me, if I'm going to get my degenerate on, I would rather sweat the Chiefs winning this game by 21 points than realistically think that crusty Big Ben in his 19 points per game is going to be able to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's put it this way. Mm-hmm. If you're betting on the Steelers, it's not that you're betting that the Steelers offense keeps up. You're betting that their defense shuts down the Chiefs enough to give the Steelers an opportunity. And I don't want to do that. I think that their defense has finally come down to earth from everyone's expectations, where they really thought this defense was a stout defense, to now it's more like they got TJ Watt, they got Hayward, great players, good future. Yeah, good future in their defense, but this is Kansas City, man. I think they go out here, they dominate this game, chalk it up, get some rest for their young guy, get some rest for their key players for late in the game, and it's curtains for Big Ben. The only thing that scares me for the Steelers is they have absolutely nothing to lose. There was like a 5% chance they made it to the playoffs last week, and they did. So that does scare me. But hell, if the Steelers cover, I sure as hell hope they win the damn game.
What are we doing with these 2 versus 7 matchups? I'm all for more football, but come on now. I mean, you got the Steelers in the AC, you got the Eagles limping in over on the other side in the NFC. I don't know, man.
It's gross. It's garbage. It's
Place
terrible.
your bet down and let it fly. Let's go ahead to Monday night. This is exciting. We got the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams. This is a hell of a matchup. The Rams are -4. I'll let you start on this one.
Miles, I don't know how many times when I make my picks, I do my analysis, then make my picks. I highlight it with a yellow highlighter on the team I'm going with. And then when we do the podcast, I highlight it. If you are on yellow as well, I go on the main board, I do yellow. If you are not on it, then I do blue, so I know which side we're on. Miles, I've erased this highlighter at least 6 times because my gut, my heart, my everything is telling me, you got to be smart, Brad. You got to back the Cardinals. You can't beat a team 3 in one season. But I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams. Listen, despite being difficult to beat a team 3 times, and covering at the 4 points could be a challenge, the Arizona Cardinals don't lack enough downfield creativity for me to think they are actually going to pose a problem for the Rams. Without DeAndre Hopkins, this team has looked abysmal. And it's kind of makes me wonder if Cliff is starting to reconsider this whole NFL thing, you know? They had a 7-game win streak during the season, then they started getting banged up. And it made me think, was it just because they had so much talent is why they were so good? Or was Cliff getting figured out? I think that if we have to do a battle of the powerful coaches, McVay versus Kingsbury, I'm going McVay 10 out of 10 times. I think that the Rams, they can finally breathe a sigh of relief because this is the moment that they've played all season for, was finally getting into the playoffs with Matthew Stafford. They knew that they knew what their defense was capable of. They knew their limitations with Jared Goff. Now they have Matthew Stafford, who, I'm a little quick side note, he's been terrible and throwing a pick in almost every single game. But they know that they have a quarterback they can rely on to win football games. I'm going with the Rams -4. I hate that I'm doing it, but I just can't get behind the Cardinals. I think that they have potential to get blown out.
Yeah, I went through the same emotions as you did in picking this game, and we're on the same side for this one as well. I'm feeling really good about the Rams here, -4. And for this one, I'm going more so with history. As you said, near impossible to beat a team 3 times.
Yeah.
You're looking at Sean McVay. Since he took over as the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, 8-1-1 against the spread against the Cardinals. 8-1-1 against the spread. He owns the Arizona Cardinals.
He's their
and now
daddy.
we're talking about Sean McVay in the playoffs, which we know that Sean McVay is a good playoff coach. We've seen it before. And Arizona finishing the season 1-4 against the spread gives me no confidence that they can come in here and cover the spread, especially on the road.
Yeah.
In the new stadium. It's going to be hopping in there. I feel good about it.
Good.
But here's the thing. Stafford, he can't lose the game. And what I mean by that is just let the talent around you.
You literally have Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson, Odell Beckham. These are receivers that can do all the work for you.
So many stars on defense. Just
Aaron
don't make
Donald.
mistakes. I mean,
I
think he tied for the league lead in interception. So many pick sixes in the back half of the season. He cannot do that in this game. As long as Stafford just stays within himself, don't make any mistakes, Rams get out of here with an easy win.
I still think that the Rams have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl.
I do too. And I was actually just thinking about this today because I was thinking about Sean McVay's last Super Bowl run where he got there with Jared Goff. I mean, if you can get there with Jared Goff, you can get there with anybody. So never count the Rams out, especially just so much talent. Have they looked like the best team in the NFC this year? No. There's a reason that the Packers are the number 1 seed. There's a reason that Tom Brady and the Bucs are number 2. But the Rams can absolutely take the NFC. The NFC is loaded. I think the winner of the Super Bowl comes out of the NFC.
I do too.
But at this point, I'm not really ready to make that official Super Bowl pick. But because there's so many teams that
many teams
in the NFC that I think can legitimately win it. The Rams are one of them.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I'll see you next week for the second round.
Guys, thanks for listening to What's the Spread podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you press the like and subscribe button. Be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or however else you get your podcasts. Best of luck.